With intolerance, you'll have an improper fit on the inner race. That could cause bearing and shaft damage. Slide the bottom half into position under the shaft and loosely install the mounting bolts. Lightly oil the bore of the inner race halves and place them as close as possible to the correct axial position, with the joints at 12 and 6 o'clock. Ensure the match marks line up. There should be an equal gap at each joint. This is an important step. If gaps are right, fit the inner race clamping rings. Make sure to follow the match marks. The thrust faces should face inward and slide smoothly into the inner race grooves. Ensure that the clamping ring joints are located 90 degrees away from the inner race joint. Insert the clamping ring fasteners and thread them in until finger tight. While tightening the fasteners, ensure the gaps at the inner race joints are equal. You can use feeler gauges to check these gaps. The gaps between the clamping ring joints should also be equal. Rings are properly seated in the inner race grooves. At this point, you'd normally add grease. We're installing this assembly without grease so we can focus on key details, but I'll still point out what to grease and when to grease it. Grease the inner race and cage halves. Install the cage halves on the inner race. Make sure the match marks line up and the roll pins are fully engaged in the cage clips. Make sure the cage can rotate freely. Fully pack the cage and roller assembly with grease. We're looking for 100% grease fill in the bearing. Pack the housing halves with the correct amount of grease. How much grease goes in the housing depends on the shaft speed. Slide the bottom housing half into position. Rotate the shaft by hand. The cage and rollers should rotate freely. Carefully install the upper half of the housing over the bearing assembly. Check your match marks. Install the housing fasteners and tighten to the appropriate torque. There should be no gap at the housing joints. Check the pedestal cap match marks. Install the cap in the proper orientation, engaging the dowel pins. There should be no gap at the pedestal joints. If there is a gap, gently tap the pedestal cap down with a soft-faced mallet. Install the pedestal cap bolts just tight enough to hold the support joints closed. At this point, only if it is safe to do so, rotate the shaft at low speed. If possible, apply a low load as well. This allows the spherical surfaces of the housing and pedestal to correctly self-align. If this isn't possible or safe, rotate the shaft by hand. Fully tighten the pedestal cap bolts to the appropriate torque. Finally, tighten the mounting bolts to the appropriate torque.